Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining our Black History Month celebration. The theme for Black History Month 2024 focuses on African Americans in the arts, in the fields of visual and performing arts, literature, fashion, folklore, language, film, music, architect, culinary, and other forms of cultural expression. The African American influence has been eminent. For centuries, Western intellects denied and minimalized the contributions of people of African descent to the arts as well as history. Even in their artistry, and many genres were mimicked and stolen. Spirituals or Negro spirituals, the First Nations' contribution to music was birthed from those who suffered through bondage. Blues musicians such as Robert Johnson, McKinley Muddy Waters, Morgan Field, Riley, B.B. King created and nurtured a style of music that has become the bedrock for gospel, soul, and other still popular evolving forms of music today. Today, we are joined by guest speaker Carol Cutting Moore, the president, owner, and general manager of WEIB 106.3 Smooth FM Cutting Edge Broadcast, Inc. In 1971, Carol received her license from the Federal Communications Commission. She would go on to spend the next 15 years obtaining a construction permit, securing tower sites, and many prolonged negotiations. After several obstacles, she became the owner and general manager of Cutting Edge Broadcasting, Inc., which began broadcasting in 1999. This made her the first African-American woman in Massachusetts to own the first FM radio station and the first FM AM Black-owned radio station in all of New England. WEIB is described as radio that connects the world locally and globally while playing cool jazz, smooth sounds, and a touch of soul with a cutting-edge blend. WEIB still remains the only Black-owned radio station in New England and is celebrating its 25th anniversary of broadcast excellence. So thank you, Carol, for joining us today.
Thank you for the invitation. I really appreciate it.
And we appreciate having you. So let's jump right in.
Okay.
Now, I know that you're from Livingston, Alabama. So, what was life growing up in Alabama?
Well, number one, it was very segregated and all those things you can connect to it. Um, I felt and lived. And so it is wonderful for you to give me the opportunity to really express myself. The part of Alabama that we grew up in was rural, Alabama. And so however you can imagine and all that entails, um, I've experienced it.
Okay. So, what was your early experience in school, right? Because you were relatively young when Jim Crow laws were still around. So, because you were probably younger, early teens, correct? Oh, you're on mute. You're on mute.
I was born into the Jim Crow South.
Yep.
Grew up on a family farm, um, and with an extended family around me. My mother was an educator, and so we would live with my sister, and I would on Sundays be taken to my family, and that's where we stayed during the week. Then she would pick us up on Friday, and we would we would go home. And of course, we had the chores because we had to get ready and make preparation for, um, to get ready, our clothes. They were very particular, ironed and washed and ironed. And the reason we spent the time with my grandparents is because my mother was an educator, but she continued to further her education. And so, at least 3 days a week, she would drive from where we lived, Livingston, Alabama, and she would then go to Alabama State, drive to Montgomery on 2-lane highway, and come back later that night so that she would get up in the morning and start teaching. So that was a different, that's was a dangerous thing, because on those roads, if anything had happened to her, she was alone most of the time, unless she could get another friend to go with her. And it was just very dangerous
Yeah.
growing during that time. But she was determined, and actually, she set a fine example for me and how I could do things in spite of the dangers or the unexpectations. You don't expect one to do those things in your life. And so, um, I often ask her, and I'm not going to get to, because I could go on and on about my mother,
Mm-hmm.
um, and my dad too. Um, but it was just so dangerous, and the fact that she had to turn right around from Glass and drive over 2 hours home on a dark 2-lane highway, and but she c- continued to instill in us and those.
You're on mute.
Hello?
Yep, I can hear you.
I wasn't sure.
So were you guys affected by like any sundowning laws or anything like that?
Sundown? No,
Okay.
no, you just knew you had to go, you
Point
did
A to point B.
precautions, but there
Okay.
was stipulation in terms of, otherwise she would not have been able to accomplish what she did accomplish. Um, but we were very aware in our family, the extended family of mother, of my grandmother, grandfather, aunts, we all lived in the house together during the week. And I said I wasn't going to do this, but
Okay.
my grandfather was very, he had to walk, or we had to walk everywhere. And so he was very clear, um, to be real about what was going on during that time. And as a matter of fact, he took, and there were 5 grandchildren living there. And so, although he owned his own land, it was adjacent to property. If he had to go visit a friend or other people or church members, he had to go through this white owned property. And he made a point, and I said I wasn't going to mention anything about it, but he explained to us and showed us what he called the hanging tree. Do you know what
Oh
I
my,
mean? So
I
we
do.
yes. And so my experiences are vast when it comes to that.
So let me ask you a question. So this hanging tree was on this man's property,
Yes.
and and you're and you, was he using it as a fearful tactic or kind of like a beware tactic or
It was just reality. It just
wow.
was. And so he made a point of showing it to us. I mean, we had no problem walking through there because you had to get to point from point A to point B to see the next neighbor behind there, that hanging tree, you had to pass by it.
Wow. What was that like for you? Were you fearful? What was your emotion behind that? Were you numb to it?
No, it was reality because um, we experienced everything from riding on the school bus past the white school and being called all kind of names and what have you, receiving broken up books, secondhand books um, that we used. We had to wait at our school, which it was uh, while the other white school buses left, we could not leave until they passed by. I mean, that was just it was our reality at that time. And so no, I wasn't intimidated by it, but he wanted to make us aware of it.
Okay. Now, in Alabama around that time, if you can remember, there was a lot of tragedies and triumphs during the 50s and 60s. Um, were you in any way an advocate around that time when you got a little older? Because I know around that time you were probably still around teenage years, but the older you got, did you participate in any kind of protests or sit-ins or like what do you remember about the civil rights?
I remember it clearly.
Okay.
Didn't necessarily have to participate any, but those as we call them, freedom riders,
Mm-hmm.
who came through the cities and those towns, and the churches were very involved, and so that kind of visiting was, expect we were very aware of what was going on. We were in Alabama and on the border of Mississippi. And so we had to be very aware of what what was going on because they were constant travels. And we experienced them when they came to our church. And of course, we knew what was going on because people were being killed, and it was a time when, you know, Alabama and Mississippi were some of the racist places. But we were fortunate in that we had access to educators who made those raggedy books speak to us, who made sure that we took the science classes and um, we weren't shortchanged. But more than that, we were encouraged and we knew what our capabilities were. Now, I'm not sure we would have gotten that had our teachers not been Black, had
Okay.
our, what have you.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So let's fast forward a little bit.
Oh,
You attended HBCU Tuskegee,
yes,
right?
yes.
So a couple things. What made you want to go there? And how important was it for you to attend a HBCU?
Most of my relatives, my mother, um, aunts attended ABC, HBCU college, but Alabama State University in Montgomery. Uh, and so it was important to me because I wanted to go to Tuskegee. I wanted to be where Booker T. Washington was, and George Washington Carver. That history. of and the tremendous things that they were able to do as Black people. I just wanted to be at Tuskegee. And so I'm the only one who did not go to Alabama State, but I have no, um, I don't feel that it was that I missed out on anything. I think it was a wonderful opportunity. And I was very involved in the choir as well
Okay.
as in chapel every Sunday, singing in the choir there. Um, but I just absorbed all that Booker T. Washington, not all that, but a lot of Booker T. Washington's and read about the fireside chats he used to have and the and just the encouragement of everyone there on the campus.
Now you say you were in the choir there. So how important was music to you growing up? Because we're going to get into the radio station. So I feel like we want to backtrack a little bit just to get a little bit of that history. So how important was music growing up?
Very important because I was very active in my church at an early age, sang in the choir, and that continued when I went to Tuskegee. I sang in the chapel choir every Sunday, and during spring breaks, we would travel the traveling chorus, and I was a part of that. So it opened opportunities for me to meet a lot of people. So that was a great experience. Music is always, I'm rooted in that and the church.
Now, I watch a lot of movies from back then, and it seems like they had like a lot of how Black people would go about the music experience, playing jazz, singing rhythm and blues and stuff like that, and these like bars and bands. And so was it really like that back then, or?
I don't know. I was pretty quiet and I did not go to bars. As a matter of fact, when my mother brought me and dropped me off at Tuskegee, I pretty much stayed on the campus.
Okay. So you
And
didn't venture out.
no, I really didn't, unless it was with uh, the choir or, um, but I loved music all my life. And, you know, music, gospel and jazz and blues, um, that's rooted
That's
in
right.
my, so
Okay. Right, and it's rooted in the community and our history as well. So how did the thoughts of the radio station come about? After that, I know that you moved um up this way, up north, right?
right.
Um, master's degree from Springfield College.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and then the radio station. So how did that come about? Because that was a pretty large feat that you were about to undertake.
Well, um, yes, and one that you didn't think I didn't think I couldn't do it.
Mhm.
Just look what Booker T. Washington accomplished by building Tuskegee. You have to put yourself into it too in order to make it work. And I was married at Tuskegee, married my husband who was attending Tuskegee Veterinary School, and we both graduated the same year. But when we graduated, it was a matter of where he got a job. Now, he was born in Boston, grew up in New Haven, Connecticut, so he was a
Okay.
New Englander. And his job offer came from Springfield, Massachusetts. And we decided that would be fine. So we moved to Springfield with nothing but a little U-Haul tacked on the back of the car. But he, attended, he took his boards here and started working here. And we and I continued the desire for, education. So that's why um the I sought out Springfield College and got that degree in community leadership and development, and was an opportunity for me to continue to learn and grow. And so that's what we did. And when we moved here, you see, we didn't know anyone. We did.
That's what I was gonna ask you. What was that shift like? Because that's
it-
two totally different things now.
Yes, it was like 30 pounds later because I always, oh, we didn't know anyone. And so we didn't know where the churches were, where the, beauticians, barbershops were. And so it wasn't until someone heard about this Black couple and reached out to us, called, and that's how we got connected to the community, started telling us where things were and who, and his name was Robert Hughes. He's now deceased.
Oh yeah, Robert Hughes. Robert Hughes, he had a charter school named after him.
That's
Has. That's right.
that's right. Well, he reached out to us and made the connection for us and became a wonderful, loyal friend. Bruce, my husband, and he would meet for lunch and go swimming during lunchtime. And we just had, and he eventually, as time went on, and he was disabled also, but my children embraced him and he would go on vacations with us.
Nice.
Mhm.
Now, was there how do you okay, so you're you're in Alabama, right?
Mhm. Yes.
Now that's totally segregated. Now
Yeah.
you come up north,
Hmm.
things are a little different. What
Were
was
they
that culture? What was that culture shock like?
were they different?
I don't know. That's why that's what I want to get to. Because
Well,
I know you went through a lot of things starting this radio station. So what was that? Were they different? That is a question.
well, it was different. I thought I was coming to the progressive north
Okay.
and where things were in place. I did not expect there to be unable to reach out and find my community, um, because there was no radio station here that you could relate to, or there was very little, as a matter of fact, during that period. Um, STC didn't exist. WGBY did not exist. Public television did not exist. And so I was surprised and wondered, well, how do you change this?
Okay.
What do you have to do? And I began to research and look around and find out what can you do? How do you start a radio station? You either buy one or you apply for a construction permit if you find there is a frequency available. There were no radio stations for sale, and there were no frequencies available initially. And
Okay.
so when one did become available, I applied for the construction permit with about two other people, and it is a very, it is a process where um, you really need to have resources, which we didn't have because we were just starting off, just moved here, just had no money. And so a friend, a person that we also knew reached out to us, and who is an existing broadcaster um, on the coast, Massachusetts coast, but he went to school in at Amherst College, and
Okay.
so he's very familiar with the area, and helped me to uh, make sure that the application was correct. And so we said we were honest because you had to put down your financial status, and we didn't have any money, and so we figured we could use used equipment or whatever we needed to do to struggle to get the station on the air. And that's how it started. And but trying to find the information and network uh, out in not this community, but I would attend uh, broadcasting meetings, and that's that's pretty much it. It started the process.
Do you feel like you were railroaded through the process?
What do you mean?
Do you feel like there were people who didn't want you to start this and maybe that's why it took a little longer? Or do you think it was just simply because you didn't have the resources?
No, it was because there are only so many frequencies available. And if one does become available, um, then you have competition.
Yep.
That's what it's about. Now, it wasn't that I know there was racism in there because the person who continued to, um, in that process, literally told me that I'm going to litigate you out of the process because it's very, very expensive to go through the process. And um, we we continued, we prevailed as we went through because by then the other people had dropped out, and it
Okay.
was me, and with the support, just encouragement of people. Um, my husband in particular, my mom, my family, to continue. And at one time, I gotta admit, I questioned whether or not I should stay in here with all of this and what it was doing to my family and the future, their future with this. And I don't know, you may not remember, but Gail King used to be at Channel 3, and she was the only person of color anywhere that I knew of. And so I could, I was bold enough to call her and just because I just needed to talk to someone to see how this how it was impacting my family, and should I continue.
And what'd she
And,
say?
well, I called her and said, "You don't know me, but I'd like to speak with you, may I?" And she invited me to come down to see her, and she encouraged me. She encouraged me to stay in there. Now, she probably doesn't even remember this, but that's the importance of having someone who looks like you and give you advice or encourage encourages you. She probably doesn't remember that. I've never spoken to her since about it. But that was the encouragement that I needed to continue this fight because we were not represented in anything, not even on camera, except for Gail. Um, And so I continued prayerfully, and I must admit that um, I am a faith is to the core. I mean, I've grown up in the church. It's very meaningful to me. And that is why my faith just I figured God was testing me, and my faith would continue to grow if I persevered and patiently take it on, because I wasn't in control of the judges and or anyone. And so I just prayerfully persisted and persevered through it all.
That's awesome. 15 years is a long time, so a lot of people would have thrown in the towel. Do you know what
Well,
I mean? So,
true, 50 years, but you got to realize I started a lot earlier than that. Before I actually applied for this construction permit, I had years into it already. So, in essence, it seems as if most of my life is.
oop.
Oh,
Yep,
am I crooked? What am I
I can
doing?
hear you.
Okay. Yes. So, so I went through that whole comparative hearing process.
Mhm.
At, at every level, I prevailed, but the other person who also wanted the frequency was an existing broadcaster, and he continued to push to the next level because he had all these DC attorneys, his DC attorney on, available at all time. And I didn't. So each time I would just prevail. And he took me all the way to the Washington, D.C. Court of Appeals.
Wow.
Every level, we hear a lot about that D.C. Court of Appeals during this time, but he he was persistent. He went all the way until he could not go any further. And that's when they finally granted the opportunity for me to start building this radio station, when they granted that construction permit. But as we say, nothing is just that easy for you. I continued to have obstacles and challenges, and it took a few more years before I could really, with my friend help, who's also um, a broadcaster, and he ended up helping me to actually test that broadcast system, because he's an engineer also. And
Okay.
so, yeah.
So
And
what was that like? Now it's finally happening. It's 1999, and what was that feeling like? What was that first show like experience?
oh,
What was the reception behind it?
okay, it was quiet. I was very quiet, and we had to test it, then get everything up and running. And and what was it like? No one knew who was behind the new radio station
Okay.
on the air. So it was very quiet for me. Uh, and for a while, no one knew that I was the owner.
Was that purposeful?
Yes,
And why was that?
because I guess my upbringing of being quiet about, and also, what they said, you don't know, you never let the right hand know what the left hand is doing, whatever. But
Okay.
through what I had gone through, and yes, there were still people who did not want this to happen, for me to have this. And so you really, I was quiet and did not let on to even my friends. Just maybe I had prayer partner, about 3 or 4 women who knew what was going on. But for the most part, I was just cautious and careful because this is a nasty business. And when you have someone who looks like me, they figure I should not even be in this. And so I was very quiet about it. And when it did come out, the haters were there. And I eventually, but I did have friends and people who would tell me, you know, this person who was seeking advertising came to me, and I told them that I um, was looking at your station, and they discouraged them. You know, you don't need that station. They can't do anything. They can't do what we can do, and we can give you all the coverage that on the phone. I knew that um, I knew that that was being said out there. So we just have to work harder. We try harder. And you know what? Not a lot has changed because they're still same. And COVID did not help. But we're still here trying to overcome all these challenges and obstacles because we're doing what no one else can do. We are the own commercial FM radio station. The others are corporately owned, and they are not, the corporations are not housed here.
Right.
Um, they have their
Like
office.
satellite stations and things like that.
Many of them own hundreds of stations. So
Right.
I have one. I'm vested in this community. My children were born here, raised here, grew up here, and I've got grandchildren here now. So I'm vested here and I want to do and be an example for the community and do things, community events that are going on. I can't do everything because I do need to pay the rent and all of that. But I am truly vested in making a positive contribution to our community. And that community now extends with internet. We broadcast over the internet and internationally. But my heart and soul is here in this community.
Good. You talk about people who have kind of helped you along the way and just people looking out. How important is allyship to you, and how important do you think it's people should continue to, gain allies and become stronger in that way?
It's definitely a growing process. I mean, I can't stay in one place. I have got to grow and I have got to um, develop friendship and allies. with other people, other organizations, other community group, and reach out to those who are willing to help me. And over the 25 years, I didn't make it here by myself.
That's right.
Mm.
Is there anything else that you would want people to know, or is there a message or something that you live by that's kept you going that you would like to share with people?
Is there? Okay, you caught me off guard there a little bit. But I would say that set your goal and set it higher than what you or anyone else might expect. Like who would expect this girl who grew up in Livingston, Alabama, uh, who in fact worked really hard, but who would expect Carol Moore Cutting to be able to go through all of that for the community? And but it's because I didn't allow the the setback or what other people thought. I didn't allow that to hamper what I felt I was capable of doing. And so I hate to, I'm not a I person, but I think that if people reach higher than what they expect or anyone else would expect, even if they don't reach that final goal, they're not going to, they're going to be higher than what most people would expect them to end up at. And so, and success basically is determined not by where you, it's determined by where you came, where you started, and how you, how far you're able to go. So I would encourage people to don't worry about what other people say or think. You just, whatever your dream is, you you go for it, and you just keep on pushing. Remember that song?
Yep.
Anyway, you keep it up because the only person who can judge is yourself and your God. Oh, well, the only person I can is my God. And as long as I know that God has my back, then I can keep moving forward. And note of reference, that was the first song that I played on the radio station, a song called God Has My Back. And it was by Denise LaSalle, she's now deceased, but she was a blues singer, a raunchy one too. But she recorded this song called God's Got My Back. And I live that because without God, I can't do, I can't do anything. And so prayerfully, I move forward with faith and determination.
Well, you're at 25 years.
Can you believe that?
That's an amazing thing. And I wish you another 25 more and then 25 more after that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the floor to some people who may have some questions or comments.
Okay.
And I do see our hand raised by our CEO of our agency, Nonotuck, George Fleschner.
Hi, Carol. George Fleischner here. What an amazing story, an inspirational story. I think you deserve a statue. I really believe you deserve a statue in downtown Springfield. The Carol Cutting statue is wonderful. What a great story. You know, your journey from the south to north. I was struck by it, and what came to mind right away was Ellison's book, Invisible Man, and I imagine that
That's
there
right.
are uh, amazing similarities between your entry into the North from the South. So it's a great honor to have had you here today. And when I read who Sir Nicole was able to grab for this celebration of Black History Month, when I read your biography, it was it's just an amazing what a life you've had. And again, an honor, and you're sharing that life with us today. Thank you very, very much for spending some time with us. And I'll leave it open for other questions. There's a million questions I would ask, but I'll be quiet and move on.
And thank you. And thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate this opportunity. And yes, invisible, so many times I have felt like Ralph Ellison and just totally invisible, and people refusing to recognize who you are in rooms and boardrooms or whatever. Um, but that's okay. I know who I am, and I know I'm not invisible.
Is there anybody else who have any questions or comments? Um, Before we let Carol continue on with her day.
I'm okay.
Thank you for sharing everything. I loved hearing your life and your, experiences in history. It's great to hear it from someone who went through so much.
And who made that comment?
Davi.
I think she could see you. It's
Oh,
okay. It's okay.
No.
sorry.
It's I think we're spotlighted certain people, so it's okay.
Okay, Davi, what is your role there?
I'm the payroll clerk over at Nonotuck.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining this conversation.
Thank you for having me too.
Is there anyone else that has a comment or question? Gretchen?
I just want to also thank you for sharing your living history. And, it's just amazing and sad to know that you are here today and we're only where we're at in society. And I applaud you, and, please I just want you to know that you have so many allies here in New England. And unfortunately, I don't think they're always super upfront and present, but we're here.
And that's very encouraging and gives you that courage to take that step forward, because we have to continue to move forward, even though people are trying to draw us back um, into that era we're trying to move from.
Yes.
Mhm.
Thank you, Gretchen.
Hey, Nicole, this is Edward. I
Yes.
don't know how to raise my hand to take a
It's
turn.
okay, Ed.
All right. Carol, I just wanted to say real quick that I I personally connected with your advice from your life wisdom and experience in recommending to people to have their current personal goals, but to set ones, to dream and shoot for the moon, and whether it's a job or a life or a play an environment or whatever it is, you know to to go big, and have goals that are past your own expectations or what other people might expect for you. And whether you achieve them or not, like you said, at the end of the day, that's fine. It's on you, but you might surprise yourself. And I connected with that. So thank you.
And thank you. And collectively, I think we can all do this encouragement, and we can do this. And I thank you for allowing me to be an ally.
You. Anyone else? Okay. Well, that concludes our discussion. And Carol, again, we thank you for having us. Your time was greatly appreciated with sharing all your information that you have, and it was a pleasure.
Yes, and for me, I, from my heart, I say thank you so much for introducing me and the radio station to your family, your Nonotuck family. And I would say that this is a great way to end this conversation, because the obstacles and challenges, conditions, and the negativity continues. And it's been good to have this in my day. And on behalf of WEIB 106.3 Smooth FM and Cutting Edge Broadcasting Incorporated, Carol Moore Cutting, I really hope this is not the last time, and that this is the beginning of how we can continue to help one another. So please feel free. And thank you so much. Oh my goodness. This is for my day. And so you have a beautifully blessed day. And thank you, thank you, thank you.
You as well. Thank you so much.
Okay.
You take care.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye.